Hi, I'm Darryl McKigney, President of the Taxpayers League Foundation. We now live during one of the most prosperous times in American history. Our economy is growing, unemployment is low, incomes are rising. But many people feel they are working harder and earning more, but not really getting ahead. At the same time, higher taxes have fed a huge growth in government spending. But big government has little to show when it comes to improving our quality of life. So, with so much prosperity and record government spending, why are so many Americans still having a tough time? To answer this question, we turn to someone who really understands the American dream. Brian Sullivan has been recognized as one of this country's most successful entrepreneurs. At age 24, he took his ideas for cleaner water and turned them into one of the country's most successful new business ventures. As someone with a reputation for solving problems, we asked Brian to look into the challenges people are facing today, find out what's going on, and come up with some real solutions. In this video, he takes on these questions and shows us what we can do to help all citizens recapture the American dream.
The Dow Jones reaches another record high today.
NASDAQ was up again today in trading as the Dow.
Technology stocks surged this morning.
We're already paying incredibly high taxes in the state.
Forecasters project another state record surplus.
Unemployment is down with the job market exploding.
I thought I'd moved into a blue-collar, working-class neighborhood. A lot of problems with drugs, gangs.
Hi, I'm Brian Sullivan. Pick up a newspaper these days. Stories are always the same. On one page, a booming economy. On another, kids committing crime, getting low test scores, families breaking up. And on another page, politicians spending even more money to keep up with these problems. How can we have it so good on the one hand, but still face so many problems? And why can't the politicians find real solutions to the challenges we face?
I see it all the time. I see kids out running around all hours of the day and night, unsupervised. Both parents might be at work trying to pay their bills and leaving the problem to the police department to take care of while they're at work. And sometimes it gets a little disheartening. And by the time we deal with them for the major crimes they committed, it's too late.
I have 4 sons. I have a good job, and my husband has a good job, but it just seems like we never get ahead because of the high taxes.
The simple truth is, a good economy and 40 years of relying on big government haven't solved our problems. In fact, in many ways, our families are having more problems than ever before. So what's going wrong here? Today, we're going to take a fresh look at the problems we face. We're going to talk to some average people to find out what the real problems are. We're going to look at history to find out how we got into this mess. And finally, we're going to talk to some leaders in our community who are working on new and encouraging solutions for the future. Let's go now to a town meeting and hear what people are saying. Well, thank you all very much for coming tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about taxes and spending, and I'm very happy to have you here. I'd like to start off talking about a very important question. I'd like to hear your feedback. I know that when polls are taken, education and concern about the quality of education or the standards that are out there is at the top of the list.
We spend a lot of money on education as a state, and the only thing that's certain is that we're going to spend more.
Really what we should do is make all schools equally good so that no one has to send their child to a better school.
The neat thing about a charter school is when they saw the problems, they closed it. When they see a problem in a public school, they don't.
We're losing it, I think, in large part due to a lack of education of our founding fathers. The kids don't know that anymore. They don't know the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. They have been separated from the roots of our country.
It's unconstitutional to teach our kids, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, honor thy father and mother. And we scratch our heads wondering where crime is coming from?
If we think about the crimes that are committed, is the government addressing the fundamental problem, or is it really just skirting over the fundamental issue? Any comments on that?
I guess, from my perspective, I think what's happened is the government has supplanted the role of parents. I think that is what has led to the thing that you mentioned. As we've given more money to government, looked to government to solve problems, it's created this void, if you will, where parents, some parents are saying, I don't need to do this, and so they back off, or they don't marry, or they don't take responsibility for what they're doing.
Probably one of the biggest underlying problems to many of these, whether it be welfare or crime or anything, is that the people have given over the responsibility and the control to government and is looking for a benefit, and not understanding that every time we look to government for a benefit, we are giving up our freedom.
Could we get some feedback on why you don't think welfare worked?
Our system is one of the worst systems in the country.
We have to teach these people that it's more fun to wake up in the morning and be self-reliant than it is to wake up and wonder what the government's going to do for you that day.
I see all the time, you know, my neighbor down the block, if he loses his job, I want to be able to help him out. I want to be able to get him some money if he needs it, or a place to stay, or some food, you know, to eat. But when I give that money to government to give to my neighbor, he gets maybe 10%, maybe 5% if he's lucky. When I give it directly to him, and Americans do that, he's going to receive all of it.
I just think welfare is kind of the underlying problem for most all of the rest of the problems.
What I heard here is that we've got a lot of problems, and many of the problems identified are the very same ones people were talking about 40 years ago. What's shocking is that during this time, politicians have spent trillions of dollars to solve these problems, but in many ways, a lot of them have gotten worse. The net result is that we seem to be losing our sense of personal responsibility. Government has made many feel entitled to the very things we used to earn. Of course, the huge increase in government in the last 40 years has dramatically increased the tax burden on average families, and that's created even more problems. Listen to the impact that's had on a typical family.
My wife and I have great jobs, but it seems we still can't find enough to save for retirement or our son's college. And since we're both working, it seems like we can't find the time to spend as a family. Sometimes I wish my wife didn't have to work, but we couldn't get by unless she did.
It's not surprising that most people think they're overtaxed. They are. We're now paying the highest percentage of our income to the federal government in our country's history. In Minnesota, we really get soaked. In fact, we now pay the 4th highest state income taxes in the country. A vicious cycle has been created. Politicians are spending more on government to solve our problems. That requires higher taxes. Higher taxes mean families have less time and money to take care of themselves, and that only creates more problems politicians want to spend money on. It's amazing. Experts tell us that the real solution to all the major problems we face, whether it's education, health, or crime, is more family involvement. Yet through high taxes, we continually cut family budgets and make it harder for families to do their jobs. It just doesn't make sense. Wouldn't it make more sense to let families keep more of their money so they could have more time to take care of themselves? Well, I'd like to share some facts with you. How many of you knew that Minnesota state government spending has doubled in the past 10 years? How about the fact that the state budget grew 15% last year at a time when inflation was only 3%? How many of you knew that some Minnesota state employees get Tai Chi classes, have access to an executive gym, get massages during their lunch hour? Does that sound fair? How about in the public schools? We just spent 15% more on public schools as well last year. How many of you knew that much of that money went to give administrators in the schools 30% pay raises? And then, one more example. The Minnesota college system, the administrator of that got a 50% pay raise, almost twice what the governor makes. How many of you knew that Minnesota was had the 4th highest income tax in the country? What do you think? I mean, should Minnesota, do we get a bang for our buck? Do you think our roads are the 4th best in the country, or do you think we have the 4th best schools?
What has really bugged me most of my life is that I pay taxes, and then the government spends it on programs that I think either are stupid, immoral, or both. So I'm required to support these things that I think not only are not good, but are detrimental and bad.
Taxes, they're just draining me. We're already paying incredibly high taxes in the state, whether it's income taxes, sales taxes, other excise taxes on my phone and cable and everything. And now when I get married in a couple months, I'm going to get hit with the marriage penalty.
Usually you have the mom out there working to pay the taxes, the dad out there working to provide the income, and then you have the internet, television, and other people raising your kids, and so you're sacrificing raising your kids to pay your taxes.
What galls me about taxes is that you go and you work all your life, you do the responsible thing, you
you save money, you're not a burden on the government, you're not a burden on anybody else, you become self-reliant, and all of a sudden you got a bunch of politicians running around saying, because you don't need us, you're a worthless, greedy, evil person. And it irks me to no end that there was idiots on the other side that buy this. We're the ones paying the tab for you.
I've been practicing dentistry in Minnesota for over 35 years, and I'm going to retire. And one of the reasons I'm retiring is because of the MinCare tax. I also plan, when I retire, to move out of the state. I'm going to move to a state that has little or no tax.
The fact that we have a ballooning budget every year and yet we still have surplus tells us we're being taxed too high.
We've listened to what average Minnesotans are saying, and we've heard some real concerns. We found that families in Minnesota are under tremendous stress and that the growth in taxes limits the choices they can make. The government's budget has grown at the expense of the family budget. We found that government spending has skyrocketed and that we're not much better off for it. Overall, we see that big government tries to tackle many problems it's incapable of solving in the first place. But when politicians increase taxes to spend even more, it just makes many of the problems worse. So how did we get into this situation? The fact is, it wasn't always this way. Our founders understood that America was a land built on self-reliance, industriousness, and an adventurous spirit. They knew that for equality to have meaning, citizens would have to take responsibility for themselves. And they knew that individuals acting in their families, friends, neighbors, or businesses' interests would always be more effective than the government. America became the greatest nation on earth because we, Americans, made our own decisions, we took our own risks, we built our own churches and businesses. The American people, for most of our history, governed themselves. Then about 40 years ago, things changed. Liberal politicians decided it was government, not the people, that was most important. They argued that only government, and more government, could solve our problems. Since then, too many of our leaders have forgotten that it's the American people who are the first and most important level of government. It's called self-government. The family is the first department of education, where children are taught not just how to walk and talk, but how to tell the difference between right and wrong, what responsibility means, and the importance of the golden rule. Businesses are the true department of economic development and the real source of jobs and family income. Our families, friends, churches, and charities were the original department of welfare. Our family farms are the first department of agriculture. The family and neighbors were the first cops on the beat. They kept kids out of trouble so the police wouldn't have to. The family medicine cabinet is the first department of health. The family car is the first department of transportation. When we think of government this way, we see that the most important priority for a politician should be to protect families and small businesses. They are the ones doing the important work of raising our children and creating the jobs to support them. The key to strengthening them is allowing working families to keep more of their income so they, and not a bureaucrat, can make the most important decisions. That is why it is so important to increase the family budget and encourage small businesses. We can only do this, though, by reducing taxes and limiting the size of government, because every increase in the state budget means a cut in the family budget. Of course, politicians today try to scare citizens into believing that only government programs can solve their problems. But the good news, there are people leading us back to our founders' vision. They have ideas for real solutions, solutions that don't require higher taxes or more government. Let's start by looking at education. Education is not only the most expensive item in state government, it's also the area most people consider to be the most important, and the area where more spending hasn't delivered results. First, let's meet Dorwatha Adderley, a principal of a private inner-city school in Minneapolis that is getting better results than the public schools at a fraction of the cost.
Well, here at Ascension, we are outscoring the students in the Minneapolis public schools by a large margin. We had 80% of our 8th graders pass the reading and 80% pass the math. We have children coming from single-parent households and families that have 2 parents in the household. And we are seeing that all students here in the inner city can learn and can achieve at high levels.
Some people argue that the key to improving our public schools is to spend more money. Do you think that's the case?
No, I do not think that we should spend more money to get better education. The costs I have heard for the Minneapolis public schools is about $12,000 per child. Our cost is $3,100 per child to educate for this school year. It's not a matter of money. It is a matter of having dedicated teachers. It is a matter of having a values-based education. I think that the Minneapolis Public Schools have a lot of dedicated teachers, but the way the system runs stops teachers from being able to teach. Our children do really well here. We don't have any weapons in the school. Our teenagers do not get pregnant. We don't have any violence whatsoever, no drugs in the school. And that's wonderful in this day and age.
DeWath's success is certainly encouraging, but can low-cost private schools really be an option for most public school students? Let's talk to someone who knows a lot about our school system. Former Governor Al Quie is a nationally known educational expert. As a governor and former member of Congress, Governor Quie developed a real understanding of what has happened to our public schools. Hi, Al. How are you?
I support school choice for two reasons. One is parents now can make the choice of where their child goes to school, and the child will do much better that way. And secondly, it brings about some competition, which causes public schools to improve in order to draw kids to their school. But I think it behooves all of us to raise up the interest of the child and their achievement in order to draw other individuals to get away from their bias and their tradition.
Americans have always been a people who haven't waited for government to solve problems. Let's meet a couple, Ron and Lori Eibensteiner. They've started a private scholarship fund to help inner-city kids get access to private schools.
Last estimates are like 65 to 70% of minorities who live in the inner city want school choice.
Opportunity scholarships are a vehicle that we try to provide parents so that they can choose where and how their children will be educated. Some people, because of financial resources, limited financial resources, don't have that, and this is an attempt to bridge the gap. We give parents real school choice.
And it's up to parents that they should decide how or what sort of education is best for their children. So I think government should get behind choice very aggressively, and whether that means a tax credit or a school voucher or something, it would be absolutely in the best interest of everyone.
One area where reform was resisted for a long time was welfare. But in 1996, Congress enacted dramatic reform by limiting the amount of time people could stay on welfare and by allowing states to make their own changes. The results, welfare rolls have decreased dramatically. Millions of Americans who were on welfare now have jobs, and more important, a real sense of dignity and hope. This is a clear example where less government actually helped more people than it would have without it. Let's talk to some of the people who are on the front line of welfare reform.
I'm concerned when government believes that it can be charity, but that's not a government role. Those are social services organizations, charities, churches. It's not about government. There are other systems that could do it, but this is not the one. This system was about giving people money and saying, we've now taken care of you, get out of our face. What changes people are relationships, are other people who care about you and do for you and get in your face about things. And so when government becomes the provider of care, the human relationship needs are missing.
Government doesn't always get it. 82% of the kids in this neighborhood are not living with their fathers. They're not connected to their fathers. And that's a population we're trying to reach. Urban Ventures does youth leadership development, meaningful work opportunities, and strengthening families, primarily by the dads. We need businesses, we need jobs, we need something for our youth, and we need to put our families back together.
The Promise program is an 8-month clerical training program. Most of the women who come to the program are single parents who are in the welfare system. A welfare check for a mother with one child is $437 a month. When students are making $9 an hour, they're making $360 a week. That's a very significant difference. Government programs aren't working because they concentrate just on a very small piece of the pie, helping people to pay part of their rent, giving them food, and we need to have a program like the Promise program where people are making positive changes, and they're making changes that are going to affect them in the long term, not just the short term.
One of the biggest reasons so many women get on welfare has been teen pregnancy. Government efforts to curb teen pregnancy have not only failed, but sometimes even made things worse. Let's talk now to Jerry Gord and Kathy Chappell. They lead a private organization dedicated to a common sense idea, helping kids say no to sex.
All you have to do is look at the life of a girl who has raised children from a very young age. Her dreams are gone. Her plans are gone. And this is happening at a huge rate in the Twin Cities. Welfare doesn't give these girls opportunity. Welfare provides them with the bare minimum for existence. These children deserve more than the bare minimum. They deserve opportunity, and it takes the community and it takes the private sector to provide this opportunity. Welfare has failed so many families.
Best Friends is a character education program where we go into the public schools, but we are a nonprofit program. We go in and serve the public schools and serve the girls ages 5th grade through 8th grade with an intense program. Our goal in Best Friends obviously is to lower teenage pregnancy and also to increase high school graduation. The high school graduation rate for minorities in Minneapolis is not high. We don't say, okay, if you're going to be sexually active, this is what you need to do. We say, we know you won't be sexually active because that's going to stop your dreams. We believe in you, and I want to see you on graduation day. I will be there from the day you start Best Friends till the day you graduate. 52% of the kids today are abstinent upon high school graduation. But what support do we give those kids? We give support for the kids who choose to be sexually active. Okay, here's what you need to do. Here are the things where you need to go and the products you need to use. But for all of those kids out there who say, hey, I'm going to be abstinent from sex, at least until I graduate from high school, what support do we give those kids?
One of the areas where government solutions have the worst track record is helping people get free from dependence on drugs and alcohol. In the Twin Cities, a private charity called Teen Challenge has been getting remarkable results.
Over 70% of all of our adults in our program have been through prior treatment and come here looking for help. Teen Challenge success is as high as 86%. Government programs at best are claiming 25%.
I've been around through about 60 government programs, and they didn't work because they talked down to me. I was just a number, and to them I wasn't going to make it when I hit the door, and usually I didn't.
Government programs don't look at a moral component. Here at Teen Challenge, we believe that man basically innately has a sin nature, and that addictive behaviors are not just a result of your genetic makeup, but decisions that we make. Teen Challenge costs about $1,000 a month, where secular programs are anywhere from $6,000 to up to $30,000 a month. Government programs can't even come close to faith-based programs.
Just as big government created some unexpected problems, reducing the size and cost of government and cutting taxes would bring many benefits politicians don't always talk about. Meet Mike Wigley, a successful Minnesota businessman. Mike tells us what would happen if we cut taxes in Minnesota.
Higher taxes and greater regulations in Minnesota have essentially forced me and hundreds of other businessmen like me to expand outside of the state and consequently create more economic vitality outside of the state of Minnesota.
And do you think you're unique?
I know I'm not. I think these kinds of decisions from small businessmen like myself occur every day.
Well, what would happen if we did cut taxes in the state?
That savings then we can translate and pass on to better pricing to customers and better wages for our people.
Bill Cooper runs one of Minnesota's largest banks. He works with individuals and companies every day who are making decisions based on Minnesota's high taxes.
If you look at retired executives or people that are about to sell their companies or sell their stock or whatever, they leave the state. High capital gains taxes and marginal tax rates are driving our best and brightest business people out of this state, and that hurts jobs.
Bill, why do you think it's so important to cut taxes in Minnesota?
Average family that's trying to save some money, buy a car, buy a house, send their kid to a better school and so forth, times may not be so good for them. And the government may think, well, gee, an extra $500 or $1,000 isn't that much money to a family. But an extra $500 or $1,000 a year can mean the difference between sending your child to a good school or saving the money for a down payment on the house and so forth. And this is real stuff for people. It's not just dollars and cents adding up. It's real differences in people's lives.
Darryl McKigney knows about Minnesota's high taxes. He leads Minnesota's largest taxpayer watchdog group, the Taxpayers League.
Oh, I think there would be tremendous advantages if we cut taxes. I think our families would be stronger. I think our businesses would do better. I even think government would spend our money wiser if we cut taxes. Overall, I think there are big advantages to big tax cuts.
It's clear that we must recapture our founders' vision of America, but how? We must once again put the family budget ahead of the state budget. We must make the family the first and most important level of government. We must encourage the virtues of hard work and personal responsibility. We must give the people the freedom to take care of themselves. We must demand that politicians limit government to only what citizens can't do for themselves. We must encourage the dreams and hard work of ordinary Minnesotans. Their energy is the true creator of our prosperity. To do this, we need to get every citizen involved in reclaiming their government, to become more involved and informed about what our government is doing. We can demand change from our politicians and hold them accountable. If you would like to help, please read the materials included with this video. Share them with your friends, family, and neighbors. Working together, we can change Minnesota for the better. For the Taxpayers League Foundation, I'm Brian Sullivan. Thanks for watching.
Hi, I'm Darrell McKigney, President of the Taxpayers League Foundation. Thank you for taking the time to watch this program. As Brian Sullivan has shown us, there's real action we can take to ensure that the American dream becomes a reality for all of our citizens. At the Taxpayers League Foundation, we believe the first step is for each of us to become more informed about what our government does, the decisions our politicians are making, and the ideas people have for making real change. If you'd like to get involved, the Taxpayers League Foundation can provide you with many resources, including publications on tax and spending issues. If you're part of a group that would be interested in learning more, our Speakers Bureau can provide you with experts who can share insights into the issues you've heard about today. And if you're interested in sharing this program with others, we would be happy to send you a video copy. To find out more, please contact us.